this horse. Jesus. This happened.
No one else is live, are they?
I don't think so. The only other people that could be live would be the guys doing the PFF college thing. Let me check.
I think it's over.
It should be over. It starts at, they're supposed to start at 3. Yeah, they finished 18 minutes ago.
Okay.
All right, let me try again. So stupid. StreamYard does this sometimes, just like shits the bed randomly. Go.
Hello and welcome to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast, Friday edition. We're here to talk all things injury. As you all know, teams have to file their final injury designations in on Friday. We'll find out exactly what the questionable guys on doing Sunday, but time to freaking adjust the ranks, people, as I am always on Friday, joined by two distinguished gentlemen. We got Dwayne "The Rock" McFarland, who had his guitar playing before this episode, feeling good, feeling loose, and also Andrew Erickson, both PFF analysts, both great guys, and both ready to talk some injuries. Guys, how's it going? Dwayne, you first. You musician, you.
Musician might be a better term for what I am, Ian. Man, I'm doing good. It's Friday, and got week 2 coming on us, man. It's like finally I've let all the wave of week 1 wash over, and now it's like, okay, onward, moving forward. So excited to be on. Hear where you guys are at on all these guys heading into week 2.
Andrew, great day to be great. How you doing?
As always, super excited to talk about some of these injuries. Again, never want to see players get hurt, but more opportunities open up for some of these other players. We got some things to review. Big news, especially when it comes to the first guy on the list. So Josh Jacobs, let's kick it off. Free Auden Tate. Josh Jacobs is out for Sunday.
Jeez, Andrew, just way to take my freaking intro, man. All right, Josh Jacobs, toe and ankle injury. He has been ruled out. And before everyone freaks out about Kenyan Drake, guys, this pissed me off. I always screw over my friends in my home league because I know about the injury news before them. So I always they probably do just already hate me by now. So I scooped up Kenyan Drake the second I heard this, before I saw John Gruden's comments on the matter, which was that Kenyan will continue to play a role in our system no matter who the other back is, but specifically asked, it's an opportunity for Peyton Barber. We really like Barber. We think he's a heck of a back coming from Tampa. I've had a chance to really get behind the scenes on him. I like the way he runs and catches and picks up blitzes. Kenyan will continue to play a role in our system no matter who the other back is. So personally, I put Drake up to RB 26. Without this news, I think I would have had him a little closer to the RB 20 borderline. I would start Drake, I believe, ahead of the Denver backs, ahead of Devin Singletary, Tyson Williams, Myles Gaskin, Jamal Williams, and more. So Dwayne, let's start with you. Where do you have Drake ranked at this point? How concerned are you about the Peyton Barber effect?
Well, what's funny is I guess John Gruden skipped the year where he played for Washington. He didn't need to scout that year. So he may not even be scouting the most recent film.
I was about to say, Gruden just doesn't even know who his last team was.
Oh, my God. I'm where you are, Ian. I actually bumped him up to, in the PPR ranks, I got him up to 26. I think one lower in half PPR. Listeners can keep me honest. You can go check out our latest ranks. And I want to say I've got him at 28 or 29 in standard. But the guys you sandwiched all around him were perfect. I've got him sitting right by Jamal Williams, but ahead of the Denver backs. In a PPR, I've got him one slot ahead of Damian Harris, but in a standard, I've got him 2 behind Damian Harris.
Andrew?
I have him at RB 28. I actually have him behind the Denver running backs. I just like their matchup a lot better. I know that they're going to be able to run the football effectively against the Jags. And look, Kenyan Drake, he's kind of in a Mike Davis situation where we know he's not going to be able to run the football at all, even if he does get early down work, hoping that he catches a bunch of receptions like he did on Monday Night Football. So, again, the only way that you're playing Kenyan Drake is if he's your RB2, because I'm not putting him in my flex. I'm putting a wide receiver in flex because there's so many other receivers with upside, even on the waiver wire, that you can pick up and start instead of Kenyan Drake, who I think is a floor play at best against the Pittsburgh Steelers.
There are some pretty horrific notes on this game going the Raiders' way. They are on the road going from Vegas to Pittsburgh for basically a 10 a.m. Pacific, standard time kickoff after a Monday night game that went to overtime. And, oh, by the way, both of their starting guards will be missing this game. So other than that, though, things really setting up well for Kenyan Drake. But, yeah, he is
it's the worst matchup of the week, right? Yeah. From a running back standpoint. If you look at our running back strength of schedule tool on the site, it's a 0. And, Can't get worse than 0 0 being bad, 10 being really good. And you've got him as a 5.5 point dog on the road. I do think it matters a lot whether I say a lot. It matters whether you're PPR or standard. Standard, I'm much more like lean into what Andrew just said and probably just a complete fade of Drake. Whereas in a PPR, I'm much more willing to lean into him because I think they will have to pass the ball.
So not an injury note, but we did have 49ers OC Mike McDaniel say Trey Sermon will be active this week. We expected it, right? I mean, how messed up would that have been? Raheem Mostert gets hurt and Sermon still can't even crack the
Trenton
active
Cannon's active
roster.
over Trey Sermon.
Yeah, like come the hell on. That would have been absolutely ridiculous. So Sermon will be out there. I personally do have Elijah Mitchell ranked one spot ahead of Kenyan Drake still. Andrew, do you share that sentiment? And I guess what do you kind of expect this Sermon Elijah Mitchell split to look like?
I don't know. I really don't know. I'm kind of throwing my hands up in the air of what this touch backfield will look like between Elijah Mitchell, Trey Sermon, and even JaMychal Hasty, because we don't even know who, it could be Hasty still as the goal line back. So neither of these guys could score any touchdowns. It's JaMychal Hasty that ends up falling into the end zone. So
how dare you?
I don't have a lot of confidence playing any of them. I think that, Mitchell makes the most sense to play him, especially if you picked him up off the waiver wire. Chances are you needed a running back play. I think he offers way more upside than a play like Kenyan Drake, where Kenyan Drake does have a floor because we know he's evolved in the passing game. He's going to catch passes against the Steelers. But Elijah Mitchell, he could have 10 touches. He could have 20. He could have 5. Like, there's just a wide range of outcomes with him. But if you're shooting for upside, I think that Elijah Mitchell makes a lot of sense.
Dwayne, Elijah Mitchell versus Mr. Kenyan Drake.
It's interesting. We've got him same spot. I've got Elijah Mitchell one spot ahead.
There we go. Drake. It's like we talk all week or something.
Yeah, I'm very interested in this one though, because I mean, it's I expect a full-on running back by committee. I expect Elijah Mitchell to start the game, maybe. I expect Sermon to work in on first and second down. I expect Hasty to handle the 2-minute offense and the long down and distance work. So I expect plenty of upset folks. I don't see this going to one back. That's the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, you say that now until Kerryon Johnson has 35 touches and a magnificent performance.
If he's not is he on the practice? Is he on the roster yet? Or
I think he's still practice squad, Andrew.
I hope so.
When we get the inactives and he's not on it and he's been promoted, we're like, oh no.
Oh my gosh. Sunday mornings, gotta love him. Okay. Another running back that was inactive in week 1, but will now be back in the lineup. That is Zach Moss. So apparently the Bills are now trying to say he was inactive due to health concerns. Note that he was not on the week 1 injury report at all. I understand he was banged up in the preseason, but that just kind of seems like BS to me. Either way, Devin Singletary was someone that we could at least feel better about as an RB3 after he got that 70% plus snap rate last week and really just dominated most of the backfield touches. Now we're potentially putting Moss into the middle of this. Dwayne, does this make Devin Singletary like not startable for you unless you're in a complete pinch?
Yeah, I don't want to play either one of these players, to be honest. Singletary couldn't do anything with everything, so why would I want to use Devin Singletary now when he could give up maybe 30% of the work that he had last week? To be honest, I think what we're hoping for is, can they just give this to Moss and can we at least see if maybe he could get something out of getting the majority of snaps? I mean, that would be the preferred path. It's just but for me, for this weekend, it's a situation that I'm just steering clear of.
Yeah, Singletary, before this, I could get behind a little bit, but
me too.
No, just get off it. A couple other quick notes. Rashad Penny, just know, has already been ruled out with the calf injury. Chris Carson already had a 70% plus snap rate. People, workhorse stuff. That could be even higher this week. You can check out
Chris Carson, greater than Antonio Gibson. Greater than Antonio Gibson.
Wow.
Greater.
Dwayne woke up and chose violence and a guitar today. On the Friday edition of this podcast, DFS episode with Andrew, we went over why Chris Carson, I believe, in that bottom 6K range on DraftKings is a better pick than Ezekiel Elliott, and also spending up from Darrell Henderson, I think makes sense there. Deandre Swift, this is for the Monday night game, but Deandre Swift with the groin, Jamal Williams with the chest, they're fine. I know they've been limited, but Deuce Staley already came out, the running back coach, and said, not a problem. Both guys expected to play. Now, moving on to wide receiver. This one hurt, guys. Will Fuller, personal reasons, will not be playing in week 2. Depending on how you feel like Brian Flores was talking and his tone of voice, you could wonder if he's even going to be playing the rest of the season. For right now, we'll just worry about this week. No Will Fuller. Andrew, are we getting behind Jalen Waddle and Devontae Parker in a major way, or are you just kind of like, not enough upside over here in Miami?
No, I think that this is going to be a more high-paced game environment against the Buffalo Bills. Not really the New England Patriots. Again, that game didn't even that game barely went over 35 points in Week 1. Again, you saw the Patriots run the ball a lot, and so did Miami. But the Bills don't want to run the ball at all. So Tua's going to have to throw the ball, and Waddle and Parker were his two main receivers. I think Parker's kind of interesting from a DFS perspective. Again, he had the highest target share, 25% target share, which was top 15 of all players last week. So Waddle obviously scored the touchdown and is the rookie, and obviously he's really explosive. So I like both of them as back-end wide receiver threes this week. So, yeah, I moved them way up. And the minute that I heard the Will Fuller news, I took the over on Devontae Parker's 46.5 receiving yards prop. So hopefully he plays and I can actually, get some action on some of these props because everyone keeps becoming inactive and all my props are voided because of it. So we'll see.
Yeah, I kind of like the over in that game. It's only at 48. You guys can check out my mismatch column that goes out every Thursday. But one of the things I do is I take the situation neutral pace from each team, add them up, and see which games just have the fastest combined offenses. And nobody has a faster projected pace of play than the Bills at the Dolphins this week. So really not too concerned about the way the Bills look last week. I think Miami could be able to keep up here in a potential sneaky shootout as well. Dwayne, where do you have Waddle ranked? Are we waddling all the way here to wide receiver, borderline wide receiver 2 status already? Or are you pressing the brakes a little bit? Because we talked about the concerns on our game-by-game breakdown. Like one of Fuller, Waddle, or Parker was probably going to have that more part-time Albert Wilson role, but Fuller's out of the picture, so we're going to see week 1 again.
Yeah, no, I think you're fine with him. Right, I would call him still a borderline wide receiver 3, just because we just need to see how this situation fully plays out. But I think if you're in a 12-team league, with 3 wide receivers and 1 flex, Waddle should be in your lineup, probably almost guaranteed, right? In that format, if you're in like a 10-team league, no flex, but you start 3 receivers, Waddle's probably not in your lineup. Now, everybody's lineup is going to be a little different, but I mean, that's about where I would start to put the cut lines as far as how I would handle getting Waddle into lineups in PPR and half PPR.
Now we got some Chicago Bears wide receivers to talk. Darnell Mooney, questionable with a back injury. Practice in full all week, though, and he's fine. Andrew, did you catch what's going on with Goodwin? Isn't he actually questionable?
I did not see what was going on. I mean, I'm not playing any Bears wide receivers except Allen Robinson. So
and we're moving on.
Goodwin is questionable with an ankle injury. Okay, I thought Andrew was in the Mooney train. I guess not.
I mean, I like Mooney a little bit, but yeah, I mean, if Marquis Goodwin, it doesn't really matter to me. It's Mooney and it's Robinson. Those the main two guys. This
is like last week when Xavier Rhodes was out, and we were like, "All right, people, we were playing Metcalf before. Like this doesn't matter." Here I am saying, "Well, Mooney without Marquis Goodwin, you never know." Way to hold me in check, boys. Appreciate it.
No, it's okay. Way to go deep, Ian. We appreciate it.
Moving on to the Colts, we got Michael Pittman and Paris Campbell questionable. Pittman's got an ankle. Campbell has an abdomen injury. I was joking around on Twitter that I think the Colts could enter Sunday with only Zach Pascal at wide receiver, and we'd probably rank him like in the 50s. Guys, what do we think about these wide receivers potentially being banged up? Or is this just a Fugazi and more reason to just pound Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines? Dwayne, you first.
The latter, what you just said. I'm not really interested in playing any of these receivers. I mean, if you're in a really deep format, you can play Pascal, right? Pick him up and you can play him if you got an injury, like 2 injuries and whatever, 14-team league, that kind of thing. But outside of that, I don't trust it yet. I mean, we're a weekend, right? And we've seen Zach Pascal do these sorts of things in the past and then kind of come up empty, and maybe he'll prove us all wrong and he'll play well. But yes, I think it's much more about kind of more like what I would say we saw with the Lions, right? I know it sounds weird, but it's like, how do you center your offense as much as you can, passing game and, the running game around the backs. And I think that's what you're going to see. So if I were to give anybody a boost, it would be Hines, and obviously everybody's starting JT if they own him. So, we don't have to go into that.
They're not rostering them in DFS as much as they should, though, Dwayne. Not as much as they should.
No, they are low. They are low.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor is now he's the play in tournaments. Like you mentioned, Ian, again, he's at 3.7%. It's less than Ronald Jones at 6%. Again, the prices are different, so that's why there's a discrepancy. But no, even Zeke, I talked about Zeke as like a tournament play. He's at 10%. Like he's not, people are on Zeke. And that makes sense. And Chris Carson is all the way up behind Najee Harris as like the most rostered running back. So if you're looking for leverage, it looks like it's either Derrick Henry or Jonathan Taylor, and I'm going to take Jonathan Taylor every single day of the week over Derrick Henry.
Where's Mixon now? I know he was at 5.5 earlier in the week.
He's up at 10. He's up in the 10 range. Yeah. So
I
Taylor
agree.
Looks
I think that's an easy pivot.
Taylor looks like the leverage play, and Yeah.
It's too easy, though. You guys know that one's going to shift at the end because all the sharps are going to see it. And they're like, oh, hell no. Can't give everybody that, extra 5. He'll be up to 10 by game time.
I'll tell you what, the two people I want to drop from the helicopter the most right now are Jonathan Taylor and Chase Claypool. We'll see what comes around by the end of Saturday, but I feel like one of them is blowing the hell up. Focusing back on injuries, though. We got Jamison Crowder with a groin, Keelan Cole with a knee, both questionable. You're starting Corey Davis, or at least, you're pretty loaded if you're not. I mean, we're talking at this point a true borderline wide receiver too, and maybe we're still not giving him enough credit there. Just keep in mind, for those expecting an Elijah Moore bounce back, I mean, Crowder and Cole are back in the picture. We could see an ugly 4-5 like wide receiver rotation. We just don't know how the snaps are going to exactly play out. Marquis Brown was questionable with an ankle injury. He was limited on Friday, so we're expecting him to go, but just be aware with that being a Sunday night game, try to have someone on your bench, whether it be Sammy Watkins or, worst case of DeMarcus Robinson, just someone you can put in worst case if it comes to that for Hollywood. And then we have a couple notes on the Bills here. Gabriel Davis, questionable with an ankle injury, limited Thursday and Friday. Emmanuel Sanders, I believe, is good to go. He practiced in full on Friday with a foot issue. Guys, out of these Bills receivers, we know Diggs is the alpha, but more and more, I think in Beasley and Sanders, particularly if Davis is out, maybe we're letting these guys go a little bit too far under the radar because, I mean, if Josh Allen gets back to being Josh Allen, we're going for 300 plus and multiple touchdowns. Diggs can't catch all those. Like, Dwayne, we not giving Beasley and Manny enough credit in the overall ranks?
Yeah, we're not. I mean, and I know why it's hard is because you look at it, well, he's a slot receiver, but it's what you said. You just have to think about the offense as a whole. And I mean, if you look at last week, Beasley was out there for 98% of the routes. That was tied with Diggs. 27% of the targets, tied with Diggs. Targets per route run, 20%, tied with Diggs. I feel like there's a trend here. Obviously, Diggs is going to get more air yards. He's targeted further down the field. Both of them target on third downs. Both of them getting good play action looks. So, yeah, I think Beasley should be higher in our ranks, and Emmanuel Sanders as well, especially if Gabe Davis doesn't play. But, I mean, that's not even that huge of a factor, Ian, because, I mean, Sanders was out there 94% of the routes last week. And that's with Gabe Davis being out there 60%. I mean, these guys are willing to use 10 personnel more than any other team in the league. I think, Andrew, actually, I think it was you that had a cool stat about that and how the next closest team was like 1,000, plays away from more than
Let's hear it, Andrew.
What? I'm not even
Andrew's like, no, I don't.
I'm not even sure exactly what that stat is. I tweeted a lot of stats.
Yeah. Well, it was just about, the Bills by far used 10 personnel, which is 4 wide receivers, more than anybody else. The next closest being the Cardinals, but it's really not close despite how aggressive the Cardinals can be with 10 personnel. So, yeah, Ian, I think you're right. I think what happens with these guys is people don't know who to choose. So it forces them both down. And so my thought is if you're going to play DFS and if you want an Allen stack, like do it with Diggs and Beasley, Diggs and Sanders. Heck, you could go naked Diggs and just go Allen and Sanders and Beasley. And if Allen were to go off and Diggs didn't do anything, like that's a differentiator for you.
Yeah, and for those that didn't catch that Bills game, Manny Sanders should have had a 50-yard walk-in score. Josh Allen just sailed it a little bit over his head. I mean, Josh Allen reminds me of that old like Mike Vick commercial when he literally throws the football like out of the stadium. I think Allen could really do that if he set his mind to it. Also, just a reminder here, Michael Gallup is on the IR with the calf injury, meaning Cedric Wilson should be out there in the majority of 3 wide receiver sets. Now, Dwayne, when we talked earlier in the week about Cedric, we weren't super on him as a waiver wire guy just because, Noah Brown wasn't active that first week. And it would make sense if Dak just condenses more targets to, CD and Cooper. But Andrew, we're talking about from a DFS perspective, and now I'm still looking at the ownership here at 2.2%. It's like, maybe everyone getting burned on Callaway, the Moores, on Marshall last week. Maybe now everyone's afraid of these 3K receivers because I'm seeing Dak Prescott's number 3 receiver at 3,100 at just 2.2%.
Yeah, well, the one thing I will say about his rostership is ESPN's Mike Clay, a PFF veteran, tweeted out Chris Harris Jr., the slot cornerback for the Chargers, is out, and he said, this is a boost for Cedric Wilson's sleeper appeal and DFS punt appeal. So I expect Cedric Wilson's rostership to expand dramatically because Mike Clay has a massive following over at ESPN. He does great work there. So, yeah, I mean, I think
thanks a
Wilson,
lot, Mike. Damn it, dude.
I think getting behind Wilson makes a lot of sense, and he's really cheap. But for me, it comes down to him versus Jalen Guyton and whoever's the cheaper guy. I mean, like they're basically kind of like the same guy, the third receiver playing in the highest total game. if one of them is significantly rostered more than the other, then I'll just go with the lower going guy. I think that's the best approach because, I mean, realistically, they probably have a very similar projection. They have a similar role, but I would argue maybe Jalen Guyton has less competition. Again, it's close, so you could really.
They're two guys like I'm not using them unless I'm stacking it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I'm not using either one of those players unless I'm playing Herbert or Dak. But I agree, Andrew, with your thought process. That would actually probably drive my ownership period, like in the way that I would construct those rosters. If one of those two is going to be lower owned, that probably also helps me. I'm going to be more overweight on the pairing of them with their quarterback.
Right.
Okay, so one more receiver spot to quickly touch on. I'm sure no one's considering playing this guy in season long, but Browns field stretcher, 3rd-round pick, came out of nowhere to actually have a pretty nice game last week. Anthony Schwartz, questionable with a hamstring injury. It's been something he's kind of been dealing with all camp, so tentatively expecting him to get out there. But I don't know. We were kind of mocking the idea OBJ wouldn't be active here last week based on Stefanski's comments, so we should at least, consider this for what it's worth. Could we be seeing a Donovan Peoples-Jones post-hype week, perhaps? I mean, we were talking about trying to leverage, potentially go against the grain here in DFS here. Andrew, everyone and their mother wants to play Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt this week. I don't know. Baker in either DPJ or Schwartz. Hopefully we get some more info on Jarvis Landry. Maybe that's a little way to mess up a tournament or two.
Yeah, I like that move there. We know the Browns are going to score a lot of points. We think that it's going to go through the run game, but sometimes Baker looked good last week throwing the ball. Like, give him credit. Again, besides that one turnover, it's like he played really well. So I think that the passing game could definitely take a step forward in this matchup against the Texans. And I mean, if Schwartz plays, I like him a lot. It was weird. He played strictly in 11 personnel and 13 personnel. So he didn't play in 12, which I thought was kind of weird. I was like, so he's not playing with 2 tight ends. But when the Browns went really heavy with 3 tight ends, they had him as the lone wide receiver in the formation. So they kind of almost set up as, hey, we're going to pound the ball here. Oh, wait, no, we're actually going to do play action and throw it deep to our guy that runs 4-2. So Schwartz with the speed can break off any big play. So I do like him if he plays. But then if he's out, then we know at least Donovan Peoples-Jones has to be the next guy up, unless it's Rashard Higgins or someone else on the seat temporary. I don't anticipate that happening, and didn't anticipate Schwartz having a massive role in week 1, but I would assume that DPJ would take that next step if Schwartz is inactive. So I would definitely go to him in DFS at 3K. I think he'd definitely be in play.
Some quick tight end notes here. Zach Ertz with his hamstring injury is good to go. Unfortunately, no major bump for Goddard. Also, Eric Ebron with his hamstring injury is good to go. So no Pat Freiermuth free square in DFS land. Jonnu Smith is questionable with a hip issue, but he is tentatively expected to play. If not, Hunter Henry would have a major bump up in the old ranks. Let's talk about one more situation that I forgot to write down on our old show sheet here, but certainly still impacted by injury. I know a lot of people are trying to get exposure to this Broncos offense. Not having Jerry Jeudy in the lineup with this ankle for at least 4 to 6 weeks. We're anticipating Courtland Sutton being the one, but I know a lot of people have gone and spent waiver wire pickups on Tim Patrick, on KJ Hamler. I mean, if we learned anything from that Houston-Jacksonville game, I think it's that we want to be playing guys against this Jaguars defense as much as possible. Dwayne, where do you have Sutton, Patrick, and Hamler kind of winding up in your final ranks?
Yeah, I've got Sutton at wide receiver 25 in a PPR. I've got Patrick at wide receiver. I got him in the low 40s, and then I've got Hamler just behind that. I think Patrick's going to he'll be on the field more. I expect him to be out there whenever they're in 12, 21, all the 2 wide receiver personnel stuff. But I expect Hamler to get out there whenever they're in 3 wide. So I just ranked them according to who I thought was going to be on the field for more routes.
Andrew, are you also Patrick over Hamler?
Yeah, I'm also Patrick over him, but I'm just generally lower on the Broncos receivers in general. And that's also why I'm higher on the running backs, because that's what that kind of makes sense there. So yeah, I'm just Courtland Sutton's wide receiver at 35 for me. So, but I get the matchup. I think that it's a good spot for him. I think you can start him. I want to see how things play out with Patrick, because they use a lot of 2 tight ends too. So how much are we going to see them in 11 personnel? I think is a question mark. And I do think they're going to run the football a lot. So I think that we're only going to see one Broncos receiver potentially eat in this matchup. So I'm shying away that others that, except for Sutton.
Yes, Sutton no longer with that Bradbury shadow. Certainly expecting bigger things from him. Want to run through some more general offensive line, defensive injuries before we get out of here. Chargers placed their right tackle, Brian Beluga, on the injured reserve list with a back injury. Hey, it helps that they're facing a Cowboys defense that won't have DeMarcus Lawrence or Randy Gregory this week. Packers placed their edge rusher, Deandre Swift, on IR with a back injury. That is not good. The Packers are low-key, I think, I guess they got more guys in the D-line, but when they were so good in 2019, or at least a lot better than they were in 2020, a big reason was Zadarius Smith getting more pressure than just about anyone other than Aaron Donald. Obviously can't do that on the IR. Saints cornerback Marshawn Lattimore is a game-time decision with a thumb injury. Not a guarantee he'll be, shadowing DJ Moore anyway. I think DJ Moore could win even if he does get shadowed by him. Obviously, it would be a small upgrade for all Panthers receivers, though, if he is out. Also, the Vikings, they won't have linebacker Anthony Barr with a knee. Defensive lineman Everson Griffin, who was in a car crash and got a concussion. Cornerback Harrison Hand also with a hamstring injury. So expecting, some sort of fireworks in that Vikings-Cardinals game, at least from the Arizona side. We'll see if Kirk Cousins and company can hold up their own. And then with the Buccaneers, secondary, no Murphy Bunting. Carlton Davis is questionable. Calvin Ridley season. I know Andrew wrote that note down with our little SZN season going on. And then also finally, Saints linebacker Quan Alexander has hit the injured reserve list with an elbow as well. So, again, with matchups and with defensive injuries and stuff, it helps. I don't think it's a reason to completely, reverse your rankings that you've been doing all week based more on workload and efficiency stuff. But yeah, guys, any of those really stand out to you, Andrew, in terms of just actionable now, like who you want to play more instead?
No, I think that, the Packers defense is definitely not as appealing as an option without Zadarius Smith. And I guess the Saints, you could say, are not as appealing, a DFS perspective without Quan Alexander, because it matters. And same thing with Marshawn Lattimore.
Yeah.
I'd like to have him out there. I know they're going to have Bradley Roby, but he just got there. So you could definitely see him having a blown coverage or two or something like that. So I think that's a potential. And Bulaga was hurt all last year too. So they have guys behind him that have experience, and that offensive line as a whole is so much better. And you mentioned the Cowboys are down pass rush, so it kind of evens things out anyway. So yeah, I think Justin Herbert's still going to have all day to throw the football, so he should be fine.
Dwayne, anything you want to get off your chest with the moves I just mentioned?
No. I think Andrew's got it all covered.
Sounds good. Now, Dwayne, I do want your opinion on one thing that came out. We had Kyle Shanahan getting asked about Brandon Ayuk, noting that he would have got his spot completely back if not for the hamstring injury before the final preseason game. I want one person to ask Kyle Shanahan why he had Brandon Ayuk out there on punt return if his hamstring was such a big issue. But I don't know. Could
you imagine the glare you would get?
Yeah, and Kyle
and you would get your press pass would be revoked.
Yeah, there we go. And Kyle also threw an unnecessary, unprovoked shot, if you will, at fantasy football at the end of his answer there, saying people care so much because of fantasy. He's like, I don't know, man. Bring a lot of eyeballs to your sport. Don't need to make.
He's trolling us.
Yeah.
He thinks
it's working,
it's a game. I know. I'm triggered.
So it is working. So Dwayne, that's my long way of saying, I know you used the C word with Ayuk earlier this week. You did it. You said after a couple more weeks we could think about it. Does this? I
said after a couple more weeks. If this is true, you couldn't get much more. You couldn't get much more direct and positive than this. This is a really good quote, right? He would have gotten his spot completely back. Kyle Shanahan's so full of shit. Earlier this week, the story was, he might be able to rotate less. So it went from, okay, he's hurt, but I'm going to play him on special teams, to, Trent Sherfield's really good, so maybe he can rotate less, to now, oh no, if he's healthy, he would have completely got his spot back. So I don't know. He said something different every time. I don't either he just doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, which I doubt. He's a smart guy, or he's just jacking with us, like Andrew said. He's totally just trying to troll with us, and we'll just have to see. If I have another option that I can play this week besides Ayuk, I'm going to do it. And I drafted a lot of teams really deep at receiver. I went with an anchor, and I went receivers 6 picks in a row. So I'm in a spot where I can just move Ayuk to my bench, not worry about it. But if you're not, this is about as good as you could hope for, what he's going to say. Now, tomorrow, he won't speak to the media, but if he did, he could change his story and you would be screwed. So yeah, I'm still going to hold the line on if I can avoid him. And to be clear, guys, when I said cut, since Ian's trying to do what our social media team does to us, which is hang us out there to dry. Love you guys. Sorry. It was if he, was continuing to not play and only seeing half the snaps. Yeah, I'd eventually move on. My biggest concern with it is now Debo's already asserted himself as being more than just, a screen guy or a jet pass guy. And then you also have George Kittle, and you have a team that wants to run the ball as much as they can. So it's like, okay, if I was drafting today, even if I knew Ayuk was completely healthy after what Debo did week 1, that moves him down some for me. Because if it's going to be truly a 3-way split, because the bet we were placing on Ayuk was because he's a good player, the bet we were placing was he was going to continue to separate himself from Debo Samuel, and potentially it'd be him and Kittle as the 1A, 1B, and really you kind of have like a 3C in Debo, right? A guy that they use wrinkles and create looks for. But now after Debo goes out and gets targeted all over the field, and oh, by the way, looks good. It was the Lions. Gotta make sure that we get that caveat in there. It was the Lions. But I mean, he looked good enough that I worry we're in a pass-heavy offense with 3 options. So, I mean, I'm not that scared of benching him if I can.
The one thing I don't get with this Ayuk and Moss stuff, the coaches are coming out and saying the reason they didn't play was injury related. Like that, they should be getting fined for that. Like that has happened before. The Steelers got in trouble in 2019 for not revealing Ben Roethlisberger's elbow injury on the injury report. So that's
why the Patriots just say everybody's questionable.
Yep.
So
that's why you just ignore all the injuries on the Patriots injury report because it doesn't matter. Tom Brady was on. Tom Brady had a shoulder injury for 10 years.
And he did.
Everyone's questionable, yeah, and they got rid of the probable to make our life even harder. But that's why we do this injury show every Friday, to try to clean things up for all you guys. Before we get out of here, let's just quickly touch on the takeaways from that awesome Thursday night game between the Washington football team and New York Giants. Dwayne, I know you were doing great utilization stuff throughout the game, so I'd love to get your thoughts on these backfield, because I was watching the game from a bar after having had way too many Pacificos, and I was just kind of yelling stuff, tweeting bullshit about Antonio Gibson. I didn't exactly have my eyes on the snaps the same way you did. So give me your thoughts on, let's start with Washington, Gibson and McKissick, and your level of concern for Antonio moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, so Gibson played on 61% of the snaps. He handled almost 70% of the rushing attempts. So it's kind of what we talked about earlier in the preseason, Ian. That's really where he's landed. He's going to be the primary back as far as getting the rushing attempts. But what we also saw is when it came to long down and distance, which is 3rd or 4th down and over 7 yards. And the reason I choose that as a cut is I don't just choose these arbitrarily, guys. Like I do a zoom out every year. I look at the league. What are the trends? How are things changing? And I'm looking for spots where we know undebatably teams are going to pass in these situations. So that then gives us a clearer cut image of, okay, on passing downs, which backs do they prefer? And if you look at it for McKissick last night, 100% of the snaps on long down and distance, he was in a route on 83% of the dropbacks. You go to the 2-minute offense, and it was McKissick again on 100% of the snaps, 93% of the routes in the 2-minute offense. Antonio Gibson did squeak on the field for one play, and he got to pass block. So that was really awesome in the 2-minute offense. And it was kind of an accidental thing where it was just like, oh, let's do a hurry up play real quick. Oh, just kidding. We're not really in the hurry up. We're not going 2-minute offense. Just kidding, Antonio Gibson. Just kidding. I still like Gibson. You tweeted about it earlier. He's still a borderline RB1. I think folks just have to understand it's my favorite thing to watch on Twitter right now, because the fact that he used to be a receiver in college has people flipping out because they think because that happened, like, how can this not be? How can this not be? And I get it. We do it all the time. We want 1 and 1 to equal 2 so bad, but sometimes it just doesn't, right? Because the coaches won't let it. And that's just what we've got going on right now with Gibson. So essentially what he is, Ian, he's a 1st and 2nd down back. He's going to get the short down and distance. He's still getting all that. So when they get inside the 5, I know he didn't get it last night, and that really sucked because it was in the 2-minute offense. And that's why McKissick got to poach the touchdown. It's not like McKissick will normally get those. It's the situation that the carry inside the 5 happened to be in the 2-minute offense at the end of a half. And that's why McKissick got it. So I think you're still going to get the majority of the touchdowns. You're just not going to get the receptions that you'd hope for. It could still be good, right? Gibson could still get to 50 receptions. Just the people that thought we could get to 80, 90, and that was going to be part of his upside, which was a big part of the storyline behind Gibson. It's just not going to happen unless McKissick is hurt.
The part that just infuriated me, like, I'm not saying Gibson needs to play 100% of the snaps. I realize McKissic does good things. It's like the Jamal Williams. We always talk about this. He wasn't bad behind Aaron Jones. We just wanted Aaron Jones to get more. We want Gibson
That's a great
to
example.
get more. But what perplexes me, clearly Washington feels Gibson is the better running back. That's why he's the starter. That's why he gets the overwhelming majority of touches. Like, they were coming out of timeouts with like single play moments and still putting McKissic over Gibson just because of the arbitrary time on the clock. So disappointing, but yeah, he's more of a borderline RB1. Dwayne, as you said in August, he just has more of a Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, at least what we were expecting Jonathan Taylor to have, more of that type of workload than the DC CMC most people were hoping.
The last thing I'll say, the beauty of it is, if something were to happen to McKissic, and not, it's like Andrew said, we don't wish for any of these players to get hurt, but we know that he has the skill set that he would turn into an elite asset at that exact moment. Like, there would be no doubt, like, he would be a top 5 back every single week. So the way I look at it, it's hard to sell him, Ian, if you own him, because as soon as you do, and then that happens, I mean, I would want to get over asking price to give away Antonio Gibson now. Right. Yeah. And if I could buy low, I mean, I would be fine, but I would really want to buy pretty decently under the asking price. So that just puts it in a situation where it's tough to buy low. It's tough to sell high. He's kind of one of these players. If you own him, you kind of own him. Now, what I will say is there's typically in every league 1 or 2 people that are just fanatics about Gibson. So you can try to play that to your advantage, but make sure the person, this is a situation where I am wanting a person to overpay, because I do not want to be the person, Ian, whenever McKissic does go down, then I'm like, wow, I just traded away my season. Awesome.
Madness. Let's move on to the Giants side real quick. First of all, Daniel Jones, I thought, played a very good game. Unfortunately, just didn't get the help he needed from his teammates. Catch that ball, Darius Slayton. I know it was on the fingertips. Professional receiver touches your hands to come down with that sucker. But, I guess it's just a Jason Garrett effect. Even if it was a good play call, Jason Garrett just has the bad voodoo going down to everyone around him. But the main event was Saquon Barkley. And it really has opened up one of the first times this year that I've seen the thing that pisses me off more than just about anything on fantasy and NFL Twitter, when people say, oh, take away Saquon's 41-yard run and look how bad his yards per carry was. No, people, have you never watched Saquon Barkley play football? Like, even going back to Penn State, he's always lived and died on these massive runs in between a lot of inefficiencies otherwise. So no, you can't take away his 41-yard run, just like I'm not going to sit here and only focus on the 41-yard run. All right. They all count. Let's treat them that way. But with that said, what we did see was Saquon really get back to playing a near every down role, 84% snap rate. And after having a brutal start to the season schedule-wise, let's be honest, Broncos, and then on a short week, the Washington football team, we get Falcons, Saints, and Cowboys next. Andrew, we're buying this dip.
Yeah, 100% buy the dip on Saquon Barkley. I don't get why people are shocked that he started out the season. This is like what we all expect. At least this is what I expected. Look, the Broncos, Washington football team, we knew what the schedule was going to be. We knew he was going to face tough defenses. Everyone was telling us that he was going to be ramped up. They weren't going to use the full workload. We get reports from the beat reporters before every game. Saquon Barkley's not going to be unleashed. Saquon Barkley's going to be in a pitch count. They're going to use more Devontae Booker. And we're all freaking out because, oh my God, like he's not Saquon Barkley. Like, yeah, no way. Of course, because that's what was clear.
You could say no shit, Andrew. You can just say it. I saw him nearly say it. He goes, no way.
It was clear the whole time that this was going to happen. And now he gets Atlanta in week 3. Like, Atlanta is going to be the bounce back spot for every single player that has a bad week the week before. Like Mike Evans this week, bounce back against Atlanta. Great. Yeah. Saquon Barkley, week 3. Like, and we saw Daniel Jones move the ball. Like, look, he can be a decent enough quarterback to at least move the football to help Saquon Barkley get opportunities. So I think that he's a buy. Look, is he going to get as many receptions? Probably not, as he did when he was in his absolute prime. Like, that's obviously the biggest thing, especially because Daniel Jones runs, and he's just less likely to check it down than Eli Manning was. So maybe that top 5 upside isn't there from a fantasy standpoint, but we know the talent's there. And look, Adrian Peterson, again, I hate to bring that comparison, but when he came out of his torn ACL, he did not start the season out like hot. He didn't. And then he rushed for 2,000 yards. So it can happen. Like, he gets 10 days off, and I'm just going to, like, if you have Barkley, you need to hold him. And I can guarantee you'll feel way better about him after week 3. And if you can get him in a trade right now, like, whatever receiver you have on your roster that like goes off randomly this week, trade him for Saquon Barkley. Guarantee you can do it. I have Mike Evans. If Mike Evans has a big game, okay, I'm going to trade him for Saquon Barkley because I want a running back. So keep that in mind with what happens this week or what transpires. Use one of those players that you have that has a big week and trade him for Saquon Barkley. I think that your roster will be better off.
Guys, moral of the story is that NFL Week 1 is in the books, which means PFF has data and grades for every single player who logged a snap last week. What can you get with a PFF subscription? I'm happy you asked. All of PFF's locked article content, PFF's NFL and college football betting dashboard, 0 to 100 grades of every single player, including the top rookies on every team, player prop tool, which shows plus minus value for every NFL prop, and more. Check out the highest graded plays from Week 1 and look to find early value on spread picks and player props for Week 2. And also, people, Week 1 may be over, but the season's just getting started at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. To kick off Week 2, DraftKings is giving new customers $200 in free bets instantly when they bet $1 on any football game. Listen up, because you don't want to miss this. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code PFF to receive $200 in free bets when you place a $1 bet in any football game. That's promo code PFF this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. You must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. And finally, people, we are proud to say the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast is sponsored by Western and Southern Financial Group. While you focus on your football lineup, Western and Southern can help you figure out your financial game plan. Their playbook of life insurance, retirement, and investment solutions can help meet your needs, so you can rest assured on game day. They'll help you understand your needs and focus on your financial goals with a custom plan just for you. Visit westernsouthern.com to get started. Boys, not too bad of an injury Week 2. I'm knocking on wood right now. Ideally, now that we have Week 1 go through, maybe we don't get a bunch of random healthy scratches on Sunday either. But both of you have produced a ton of great content on PFF.com throughout the week. Andrew, let the people know what you got if they want to check it out. And I don't know, maybe win a fantasy football game or two this weekend.
PFF Stardom Situm is up there. We got the DFS cheat sheet, and we're going to be doing a DFS live stream, real soon. So make sure you go check that out as well. And I'm on Twitter at @AndrewErickson_.
Don't forget the underscore. Dwayne, what's good, man?
Yeah, rankings, tiers are up. I've got an article looking across all of those by position. Got the smash and fades all for the week, the upgrades, the downgrades, all in an article that hit today. And then, man, the utilization report. It's always good. Ian. You can use it anytime you want. I got a lot of great feedback on it, so I was really thankful because I tried to make it the best it's ever been since this is my full-time job now. I was like, I should probably make this thing really kick ass. And it was awesome. I stayed up for 2 days straight and wanted to stab my eyeballs out, but I made it. And and I think I've got it where I can automate more of it moving forward. So that's sitting out there. And I break down every single team, all the skill positions. And then if that's not enough, then you go check out all of Ian's stuff too, and you put them together, and then you get Andrew's stuff, and it's a Reese's. You got peanut butter, you got chocolate, and all together it's goodness and fantasy football greatness.
It's like peanut butter and chocolate, and just couldn't think of a third thing to work with the example.
Well, it's a Reese's. It's a Reese's. It's a Reese-Salt. A salt is good. Yes, it's a Reese's.
For Dwayne, for Andrew, I'm Ian. Thank you all for tuning in to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Good luck this weekend. And make sure you check out our Sunday morning start sit hour, 10 a.m. We'll be back on StreamYard, try to get to as many questions as possible. Until next time, take care, everybody.